For more on Jameis to the G-Men, we welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and CBS Sports NFL writer Tyler Sullivan. Being back, I'll start with you, FSU guy. What does Jameis to the Giants mean for Aaron Rodgers' possible future with that team, or maybe what it might mean for the Giants' draft outlook?
I really believe now, seeing them add Jameis Winston to their organization, they will select a quarterback with their first-round pick. And right now, Russ, Tyler, they're sitting at the third spot. Understanding and knowing the draft, clearly the top two guys are Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. I don't expect to see any movement for the New York Giants based on knowing the team in front of them in the New England Patriots. They don't have any needs to address the quarterback room. So with that being said, I do believe the Giants will take a rookie quarterback with the third pick. And it makes all the sense in the world because now bringing in a guy like Jameis, what he does is add quality leadership to an organization that needs leadership. When you look at every destination that Jameis has been, the entire locker room has said nothing but great things about him, especially most recently his former Cleveland Browns teammates. And the same can be said for coaches. So he understands his role, and he does not mind, in his words, serving whoever the starting quarterback is, especially if it's a rookie. So I like this move in terms of what the mindset should be for the Giants, especially if they go out and draft a quarterback with the third pick.
Yeah, I think this move is really interesting, and it still gives them the flexibility. It's not like they're signing Russell Wilson, another quarterback that they were interested in. You could say, okay, that's probably going to be your week one starter going forward. You bring in Jameis Winston. He has started in the NFL before. Obviously, you know, it's 7 starts for the Cleveland Browns last season, but his presence doesn't preclude you from doing anything, really, right? It still gives you that flexibility of, if you want to sign an Aaron Rodgers, let's say, you could still bring him in. Of course, you could go the NFL draft route and bring in someone like Shedeur Sanders with the number 3 overall pick. But Jameis Winston's presence at least gives them an option. This is something that has really been scratching my head for the entire Aaron Rodgers process, whether it was the New York Giants or the Pittsburgh Steelers. There really wasn't many options for either one of those organizations outside of Aaron Rodgers at the moment. You had the New York Giants, who only have Tommy DeVito as a quarterback on the roster. If Aaron Rodgers decided to go somewhere else, it just didn't seem like they had many options. At least now you have someone who could give you a floor. Again, the ceiling is not Super Bowl. We're not talking about that with Jameis Winston or the New York Giants, but at least he's someone that you know has started in the NFL, has been productive in the NFL, and has been a good locker room guy.
All right, so maybe this at least gives the Giants the option of not having to sign Aaron Rodgers necessarily. The Steelers are a team that still needs a quarterback, B-Mac, and he met with the Steelers, did Aaron Rodgers on Friday. If not Pittsburgh, where then for Aaron Rodgers? Where do you see him ending up?
If not Pittsburgh, me personally, I see Aaron Rodgers retiring. Just hearing the news about the New York Giants signing Jameis Winston, yes, there's still a window of a potential Aaron Rodgers relationship with the New York Giants, but what does that mean? And would that make sense? Because technically, if you bring in Aaron Rodgers right now, you're pretty much renting him for a full year, because we know he's closer to the end of his career than the beginning. The same can be said for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if you're the New York Giants, would that be the smartest thing to do? Because technically, with or with Aaron Rodgers, you're the same team, in my opinion. So why don't you just get ready for the future? Now, in terms of Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pittsburgh has been able to do one thing we know for sure: win ball games, get into the playoffs with me playing quarterback, basically, right? So if you're Aaron Rodgers, maybe you feel like you can be that one missing piece that can get them to be more relevant in postseason play. And outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers, we've heard the rumors, the small rumors about potentially Minnesota, but it seems like Minnesota is not really intrigued about the Aaron Rodgers relationship. So they're kind of out of the running. So now you're running out of options, knowing that the New York Giants just brought in Jameis Winston. So for me personally, guys, it's like, if you take Pittsburgh, you know you will be their starter. If you don't want to go to Pittsburgh, I don't know if there's any other valuable options left for Aaron Rodgers, and there lies the opportunity maybe to retire.
Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that if you are the New York Giants, again, bring in someone like Jameis Winston, you could still draft a Shedeur Sanders, and you could even start Jameis Winston to start a year and then make the switch mid-season, very similar to what we saw in New England with Jacoby Brissett and Drake May. You can't really do that with Aaron Rodgers, whether you're any of these organizations. So if you're signing up for Aaron Rodgers, as B-Mac said, you're signing up for a full 17 games if he's healthy throughout the regular season. The question is, if you're Pittsburgh, what are your other options? That's kind of where I've been sitting at here with Pittsburgh. Yes, you could go back to the well with Russell Wilson, and now that the New York Giants are bringing in veteran quarterbacks, it feels like that option is shut off. Could he still go to the Cleveland Browns, another team that he's visited? Sure, but if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, it does kind of feel Aaron Rodgers or bust right now, and the question is, again, is that next player Russell Wilson? Is it a Jackson Dart in the NFL draft? Is it a quarterback that we just haven't even thought of at this point? But again, very interesting to see here as it's going to relate to Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right now, it seems like Russell Wilson's the guy that has to just sit back and wait for other things to happen. He doesn't have the chips to make something happen. B-Mac, where does Russell Wilson end up? Is he on a roster when training camp's open?
I do believe he will be on a roster. In terms of being a starter, I don't know, right? He's running out of options as well. The two, I think, most credible options realistic options for Russell, guys, is the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers option is basically waiting on Aaron Rodgers, because clearly Pittsburgh wants Aaron Rodgers more than they want Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson probably will be the final option, but they can get Aaron Rodgers. That's their guy. So now Russell's kind of waiting on the Aaron Rodgers process to see exactly what happens with that, and then he can go ahead and focus all of his attention probably on the Cleveland Browns. Now, also, too, where's Russell Wilson in his career? Because I believe he still wants to be a starting quarterback. So now, if that's the case, Minnesota won't entertain Russell Wilson because we know J.J. McCarthy is his guy. Cleveland brought in Kenny Pickett, but of course, that can be a situation where Russell can beat out Kenny Pickett for that starting job. So Russell still believes he's a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I think he will go to a destination that will give him that opportunity to start. And right now, just seeing how close this Pittsburgh Steelers-Aaron Rodgers relationship is looking like Cleveland Browns will probably be the best realistic option for Russell Wilson, especially if Aaron Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the near future.
And I'll say this. Patience might be a virtue for Russell Wilson. He might want to take a page out of the Joe Flacco playbook. If all of these options he doesn't love, you could just sit back and see how the dominoes fall. There's a possibility, of course, in the NFL for injury, and we've seen Joe Flacco pop into an organization and start rattling off wins and become a comeback player of the year. That's an option for Russell Wilson if there is not that clear-cut, slam dunk, I'm going to compete to be a starter when it comes to training camp. So, again, patience might be a virtue for him if that starting job isn't as clear-cut for him out of the gate.
Jameis Winston to the Giants. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. We await the next action from the NFL quarterback scene. Bryant McFadden, Tyler Sullivan, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you soon talking about more stuff when it comes to NFL QBs. The Giants have not done well in the passing game the last 5 seasons. I mean, last. Not good. Jameis Winston, Tommy Cutlets, that's your QB room right now. We'll see how it all unfolds as we head towards the NFL draft. The New York Giants have agreed to a 2-year, $8 million deal with Jameis Winston. According to multiple reports, the deal could be worth up to $16 million with incentives. Winston joins Tommy DeVito as the only quarterbacks right now on the Giants roster. Winston played in 12 games, started 7 for the Browns last season. Passed for over 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And for more on Jameis to the Giants, we welcome in CBS Sports NFL draft analyst Ryan Wilson. Ryan, hard to believe the Giants are signing Jameis to be their quarterback of the future, but they do have a veteran backup in the quarterback room at least. What does the signing tell you about their intentions with the number 3 overall draft pick?
Hey, Russ, good to see you. Number 3 overall. I think they're going to very much be in the quarterback business, whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. It feels like more likely to be Shedeur than Cam because Cam's going to go first overall to the Tennessee Titans. As we sit here, is the speculation. But the other thing to keep in mind, Russ, is this. They're still not quite yet out of the Aaron Rodgers business because Aaron Rodgers remains available. According to reports, he met for 6 hours today with the Pittsburgh Steelers, left Pittsburgh without a deal, which again means he's available to sign with whomever he wants. The original conversation was that he wanted to go to Minnesota. It sounds like, according to reports, that Minnesota said thanks but no thanks for right now. We want to see where we are with J.J. McCarthy, and that means that teams like the Steelers, like the Giants, are very much interested in Aaron Rodgers, and we have to wait on Aaron Rodgers. You and I were in the studio last week waiting on Aaron Rodgers as free agency was in its infancy, and here we remain. But I think if you're the Giants at number 3, and we were talking about this a moment ago before we came on air, Jameis is not the long-term answer, and the old saying is you live by the Jameis and you die by the Jameis, and by that I mean he could throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns one week, and he could throw for 5 interceptions next week. So you're never quite sure what you're going to get. And knowing that, you can roll with them for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks maybe. But ideally, you need a stable quarterback in place, whether that's Aaron Rodgers for 1 season or whether that's someone like Shedeur Sanders for the next 4 or 5 years if you draft him number 3 overall.
Well, let's say the Giants do want to draft a quarterback near the top of the draft. There's still no guarantee that at 3, both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are going to be available. If the Giants wanted to make sure that they could get into that top 2, what kind of haul are we talking about they're going to have to give away for that?
It's going to be a lot, even if you're moving up 1 spot. Historically, we've seen teams move up a few spots, and it's cost them quite a bit because the teams they're trading with know quite well that they're coming up for a quarterback. If you're trading up for an Abdul Carter, for example, the edge rusher out of Penn State, that will probably be a little lower price because it's not a premium position and that a quarterback determines the direction of a team for the next decade in some cases. So that's one thing. It's going to cost a lot. But here's something else to keep in mind, Russ. The Giants picked 34. Maybe that's a Jackson Dart situation. He could certainly be there at the top of the 2nd round. And then they pick again in 69, and they pick in the early 100s. They have a couple picks there. And maybe that means they're in the Kyle McCord business out of Syracuse, or the Tyler Shuck business out of Louisville, who I know a lot of teams like. I'm not as high on Tyler Shuck as some teams that I've spoken with. But look, I'm not making these draft picks. So there are other opportunities outside of that number 3 overall pick if the Giants aren't interested in giving up a ton, even to go up a spot, to get Shedeur Sanders in this case, the snare we're talking about. Maybe they trade it from 34 to 28 or 29, much cheaper to move up those spots to the bottom of round 1 to get a Jackson Dart and still get that 5th-year option.
That's why we love talking to Ryan Wilson this time of year, because while we're thinking top of the draft, top 3 picks, Giants picking up Jameis Winston, Ryan's telling us all the other options that they may have. We might have to have a little bit more patience. Ryan Wilson, thank you so much for the knowledge. Much appreciated. 34 days until the draft in Green Bay. For more draft content, check out With the First Pick. In the latest episode, Ryan's joined by Emory Hunt to discuss Tyler Warren and their top 10 tight ends in the draft class. Get positional rankings, mock drafts, and more. Download and subscribe With the First Pick wherever you get your podcasts.